Speaker McCarthy has said he has not spoken with President Biden on Ukraine, and that his objection to the funding is that the White House has not shown, quote, how we're going to win and what is our mission, end quote. What does winning look like in Ukraine? Does the president plan to speak with Speaker McCarthy?
Look, I don't have any conversations to read out or planned conversation with the speaker. Look, the speaker was on TV yesterday, on television yesterday, showing and speaking to the commitment that he has made to the Ukrainian people. And he said yesterday, I support being able to make sure Ukraine has the weapons that they need. And in fact, he said that multiple times yesterday. So he has made publicly his support to Ukraine. There's a bipartisan support, as we have seen from day one, for continued funding, in Ukraine. And look, let's not forget what the purpose of this is for. This is for to see the continuation of the brave people in Ukraine to fight for their freedom, right? To fight for their democracy. And so that's what we want to continue to do. That is what the president wants to continue to see, and not just us. There are Republicans and Democrats in Congress in a bipartisan way who wants to see funding in Ukraine continue.
And then secondly, in light of the CR, has President Biden or anyone in the administration been in touch with our allies about Ukraine? Are they having to address concerns?
So look, we have been in touch with some of our allies and partners, certainly about Ukraine, and that is something that we have done for some time now, over the past 17, 18 months. And so that's going to continue. The president, as you know, was able to bring more than 50 countries together to show their support for Ukraine. That's our partners and allies. You saw what he was able to do with the NATO alliance. They are the strongest that alliance is the strongest that it's ever been. And so that commitment is going to continue. That commitment, our message to the world is going to be, the president continuing to restore our leadership, as we have seen, and continuing to strengthen that alliances. Look, we are going to, we're going to continue help to Ukraine as long as it takes. And the president said yesterday, what we have seen from extreme Republicans' actions does not help. It doesn't help with our allies and partners. It does not. But we're going to continue to deliver for the American people, and we're going to continue to advance our national security priorities, because by helping Ukraine, we are also protecting and delivering for the American people and our national security. So that's important as well. They don't have to wait 45 days to get this done. They really don't. There's no excuse for another crisis. That is what the president said yesterday. And they have to stop the games. They have to stop playing these games. That's, again, what the president said. They have to get to work and stop playing games and do their duty. Or else we're going to be in the same place that we were this weekend, a month from now. And so, what they're doing instead is pursuing these 30% cuts. We're talking about education. We're talking about Meals on Wheels. We're talking about really critical programs that Americans need just to move through their day-to-day lives. And so we can't be focusing on that. They need to keep the government open, continuing to do that, their basic duty.
Yeah, thanks. One point that Speaker McCarthy made repeatedly on Face the Nation yesterday was that he wants any additional funds for Ukraine tied to congressional action on border security. Is that something that the White House would consider supporting for a vote on Ukraine funding?
So look, I think the American people are fed up. They're fed up of the political games, the political stunts that House Republicans are doing on our national security and also our government. You have a president who has delivered record funding to make sure that we have additional Border Patrol federal employees at the border. This is something that he has done and has delivered on. And instead, these extreme House Republicans, what did they do? They just passed 2 weeks ago a proposed cutting DHS funding by 8%. They're the ones who are saying that they want to defund DHS. That's what they're saying. Meanwhile, we're trying to do everything that we can to make sure that we deal with what's going on at the border. As it relates to Ukraine funding, there's bipartisan support. We've heard that from Republicans and Democrats, and we appreciate the bipartisan support that we have seen for Ukraine. And we are confident that we're going to continue to see that.
The Kremlin said this morning that Western fatigue over Ukraine is going to grow in the United States and other countries after what happened here in Washington this weekend. I mean, how do you respond to that, and what can the United States do to prevent that?
So here's our message to Putin. The president has built a coalition of more than 50 countries, right? He provided aid to support Ukraine. That is what the president has done. And we have rallied more than 140 countries to condemn Russia's invasion into Ukraine. That's what the president has been able to do. There is very strong international coalition behind Ukraine. And if Putin thinks he can outlast us, he's wrong. He's wrong. And so we will have another package of aid for Ukraine soon to signal our continued support for the brave people of Ukraine. And so that's our message. If he thinks he can outlast us, that is Mr. Putin, we believe he's wrong. Okay.
Karine, following on that, the Financial Times reported Russia has successfully avoided Western sanctions on all oil exports by using Chinese yuan to avoid those sanctions. What confidence do you have that that this is continuing to work? And how can the White House continue the same path using sanctions to try and change Russia's behavior without enlisting China in some way?
So look, we've worked with our allies and partners to immobilize half of Russia's reserves, about $300 billion. It's cutting Russia off from a key source of its economic resilience. Last year, rather than its forecasted budget surplus, Russia suffered a budget deficit despite record oil and gas revenues. And that's what we saw last year. Now, this year, their fiscal situation has deteriorated even further. In just 6 months, the price cap on Russian oil has contributed to a significant decline in government oil revenue at a key junction in the war, down nearly 50% from a year prior. And as of June, the budget deficit for the first half of the year has reached 90% of the projected full year deficit. So we will continue to impose further pressure on Russia going forward, and that's going to be our focus.
The UAW strike is now in its third week. Is there any concern that the president's appearance on the picket line may have frustrated auto companies and prolonged discussions?
What I can say is that the president did something that was historic, right? He went to an active picket line to show his solidarity for union workers, for the men and women of UAW, and he was proud to do that. That doesn't change what the president has said many times, again, supporting collective bargaining, allowing the negotiations to continue with all parties, and making sure that they have the ability and the right to ask for fair pay and fair wage. And so that's what we believe. We think that it's good that they're continuing to have these negotiations and continue to have the conversations. And let's not forget, you have the West Coast port, right? You have the Teamsters, right, and UPS. Collective bargaining works. So we're going to let this process move forward.